in the cabinet of President Mwai Kibaki. Tonight on Kenya Decides, we will be focusing on this man, Raila Amolo Odinga, the Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate, and that story plugs into Kenya Decides. Safina Chieng hosting a panel, and they'll be looking at the different manifestos of different political parties, looking at how those strategies that are contained in those political parties can help to cure those problems that are ailing this wonderful country of ours. On behalf of the Prime Edition team, I want to thank you so much for watching. My name is Tom Boya, and I'm wishing you a pleasant viewing. Good night. Bye-bye.
Born on January 7, 1945, Raila Amolo Odinga's route to the cabinet and beyond started when he joined elective politics after the reintroduction of multi-partyism in 1992. In 2001, Odinga was among leaders appointed to serve in the cabinet. From June 2001 to late 2002, he was appointed by President Moi as Minister for Energy. Between 2003 and 2005, Odinga held key portfolios as he was Minister for Roads, Public Works and Housing. From 2008 to 2013, he served as the Prime Minister of Kenya. Odinga was identified with the country's so-called second liberation. Notably, he was in jail for treason between 1982 and 1988. In June 1989, he was released but incarcerated again in July 1990, together with Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubier, for calling for the return of multi-party politics. In 1992, he was elected as a Member of Parliament for Lang'ata constituency in Nairobi. He would win the seat again in 1997 when he also vied for presidency but lost to Moi. He retained the Lang'ata seat in 2002 and 2007. In his first bid before the presidency in 1997, Odinga finished third after President Moi and the Democratic Party candidate Mwai Kibaki. In the lead-up to the 2002 elections, he ditched a fragmented opposition to join Moi's side KANU in his successor. In March 2001, his National Development Party NDP merged with KANU to form the new KANU. He was appointed Minister for Energy, a position he held from June 2001 to late 2002. As soon as he joined NAC, Odinga openly declared Kibaki Tosha, Swahili endorsement of Kibaki's candidature for the top seat. Odinga traversed the country campaigning for Kibaki, and when the presidential candidate was involved in an accident that left him indisposed just before the elections, Odinga took the lead and ensured that Kibaki was elected with an overwhelming majority of 67%. Between 2003 and 2005, Odinga and his lieutenants held key portfolios, him holding the Minister for Roads, Public Works and Housing, while James Orengo was appointed Minister for Lands. He and his LDP colleagues campaigned on the no or orange side, thereby rejecting the draft and opposing the president and his yes or banana side. In 2005, when the document was put to vote, the government lost by 43% to Odinga's 57%. He then formed a new opposition outfit, the Orange Democratic Movement. On 30th December 2007, the Electoral Commission of Kenya declared President Kibaki the winner of the presidential election, placing him ahead of Odinga by about 232,000 votes. The opposition, led by Odinga, rejected the result, and what followed was mass action that resulted in widespread violence and deaths. The tragedy attracted the attention of the international community, with the former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan acting as a mediator. A power-sharing deal created a government of national unity with Odinga as Prime Minister. In 2013, Odinga would contest the presidency, this time under a new constitution order that adopted a presidential system of governance. President Kenyatta won the election held on 4th March 2013, garnering 50.51% against Odinga's 43.70%. But Odinga filed a petition at the Supreme Court of Kenya, citing massive failure of the biometric voter registration BVR kits. Kenyatta's inauguration on 9 April 2013 marked the end of Odinga's tenure as Prime Minister. Kenyatta was declared the winner with 54% of the votes cast against Odinga's 43%. Again, the results were contested at the Supreme Court. It was annulled and a fresh vote for the presidency ordered. But on 10th October, Odinga announced his withdrawal from the repeat election. Kenyatta won again and was installed as president for a second term. Raila would declare himself the people's president and held a mock swearing-in ceremony at a tense rally at Uhuru Park. However, on March 9, 2018, Raila and Uhuru would surprise Kenyans when they appeared outside Harambee House, the office of the president, and declared they had made a truce, which they symbolized with a handshake. Raila was appointed Africa Union Commission's Special Envoy on Infrastructure. President Uhuru and Raila would henceforth work together, with their political relationship reaching its peak with the formation of the Azimio la Umoja coalition party, where Uhuru is the chairman and Raila is the party leader. Odinga named Martha Karua as his running mate.
Indeed, and that is what is setting the pace for our conversation tonight as we assess the state of the race just days after the unveiling of the manifestos by the presidential candidates. Of course, the latest being the Agano Party presidential flag bearer. And of course, it came just a few moments after we saw the Kenya Kwanza Alliance and the Roots Party also unveil their manifesto, which came a month after the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance unveiled the manifesto. This is actually their contract for what they plan to do for the country should they be elected on the 9th of August. And of course, we'll be looking at those visions and promises for the country in this next 1 hour of Kenya Decides that is coming to you live from Fairmont, the Norfolk Hotel, right here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Let's look at the manifestos and how they seek to fix the economic problem that the country is currently facing. And we'll be looking at some of the key sectors and how these manifestos have expounded their plan to invest in these sectors and whether this is workable in our current setup as a country. Joining me to have this very important conversation is a panel of three, two ladies and a gentleman. I'll begin with the lady from my far left. You've been very busy in the kitchen, coming up with this manifesto. Her name is Isabel Githinji. She's the third Deputy Secretary General of the Azimio National Coalition Executive Council, also the Secretary General of the Kenya Reform Party. Thank you for creating time for us.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers.
All right. And we have Nyakan Juliet, if I may add. She's a strategy and policy expert, also presidential aspirant in the 2022 general election. Thank you for creating time for us, June.
Thank you.
And we have Kennedy Ojunga. He's a corporate executive, currently serves as a corporate leader in telecom, media and technology, has interest in politics, having served as a student leader at the University of Nairobi, and also was actively involved in the Youth League of the Ford Kenya Party. And I can go on and on about who Kennedy is, but we're glad to have you this night.
Thank you.
All right. So a good point to start. I know they've heard me say you're a presidential aspirant in the 2022 general election, contrary to what many think, that we have only 4 presidential candidates. So maybe let's begin there.
Yes, it's great to be here on the show. And yes, I am one of the presidential aspirants for these elections. We all know that this is still a journey. Today we had a ruling in the courts that could lead to a direction that IBC or the courts decide, that could open up that space for a different reality. However, as a presidential aspirant, yes, I have quite some great vision for the nation. Today we're discussing manifestos, and I also have ideas on the kind of manifesto that I think Kenyans would like. It would be great to see what kind of leadership, as we set the ground for this conversation today. What I'd like to share, even with my fellow colleagues here, is what do Kenyans really want, okay? Are we giving them what they really want? Are we being the voice of the people, or are we prescribing and cooking food that they don't even need or didn't ask for, right? Are we cooking food that they need today? Okay, and for me, I'm looking at the progression of our political leadership. I've said it a couple of times that we need to look at the season and time that we're in. We've come from a place where we had political independence, liberation, That was in 1963 when we got our independence, and our Excellency Jomo Kenyatta was at the forefront of that. And then we moved into a place where His Excellency Moi was harnessing and putting together, the unity in the country, bringing peace and stability, so we could create a good foundation. And then we progressed, to His Excellency President Kibaki, who laid the foundation for strong economic recovery and opening up the democratic space. He, alongside, His Excellency, Uhuru Kenyatta, then, but also the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, High Excellency Martha Karua, and others were on the forefront of those reforms and opening up a democratic space.
Okay.
His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta built on the gains of the economic recovery and brought a lot of our external players into the matters of development, towards our Vision 2030. Right now, we need a leader that's going to deal with the things that we're grappling with, that are realities, which is really huge economic bite, okay? We had made some gains in our economy, but we now need to get back to recovery because we got some hits with COVID, global inflation, the Ukraine-Russia war has affected and dented globally, the economics. So the kind of leadership we're looking at now is a kind of leadership that will restore and recover, a kind of leadership that will move away from what we discussed earlier, our commercialized politics and our ethnic base, to sort of harness all our people. Okay?
Thank you, Nyakan.
Yeah.
I'll give you a chance to shed more light on what you so passionately talk about, the vision that you see, the direction you see us taking as a country to build the country's economy. So who is this leader going to be? Is it going to be the Deputy President, William Ruto? Is it going to be the former Premier, Raila Odinga? Is it going to be Professor George Wajakoya? Is it going to be David Mwaure? Is it going to be Nyakan June? And going by the High Court ruling, by the way, that you were citing earlier, things may change. It's a matter of wait and see, because the High Court has quashed the requirement by IEBC of independent candidates to submit copies of their supporters' identity cards, as part of the requirements to be cleared or to be nominated to be a presidential candidate in this country. So this is something we're yet to see how far it's going to go, but that is a matter of wait and see. So let's begin this officially, ladies and gentlemen. And Kennedy, what season are we in right now that the manifestos are out? How do you describe this stage, this phase of the electoral process for a Kenyan who may have missed the significance of where we are as a country in this race?
I think we are at a stage where we, the political leaders, the people who are actually at the forefront running for the elective positions, are supposed to explain their manifesto and how that relates to the needs of the country, and especially those critical pain points, how they answer those critical pain points. I think it's their biggest opportunity they have, to define how they want to lead this country in the next 5 years. And I think, like many of them have said, the manifesto is their contract with the electorate, with the citizens of the country, and how they explain it, and the passion that they put to it will define whether people will buy their manifestos, so their promises, or not.
All right. Isabel, picking from where he has left, it's 34 days to the August polls. Tell us a bit about what has been keeping you busy as Azimio la Umoja One Kenya. Now that your manifesto is out, is it 1 month down the line? What are your priorities right now?
Thank you again. The foundation of this country, it's like a ladder, so that every government that comes builds upon one and then the other. So even as these manifestos are being developed, it is in the larger understanding of where Kenya is and the vision that is for Kenya, irrespective of the leadership that is coming. So that we are building up from where, as she mentioned, where Mwai Kibaki left, where Uhuru left, it's a build-up like that. So a manifesto is not going to be off. It will not be quite off tangent. It will still be part of the larger vision for Kenyans. So the manifesto by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, you'll find that it is continuing to build upon from where the current government is and the vision now, like as we say, Vision 2030, so we are building up against that. So that when you hear presidential candidates saying, no, we are going to review and possibly scrap It's a different conversation altogether, because a government is by the people. So whatever has happened up to now is by the people. Any leader who has been acting on delegated power. So anything that has happened so far is by the people. So you cannot scrap what the people have already done for themselves. You can only build up from there. And so that is what our manifesto is all about. And we are big on manufacturing. As you know, we are big on it because we are saying from where we are, we have done infrastructural setup, but then we are saying we have to go to the next level, which is in production. And production is going to heal about 3 issues. One is going to give us economic empowerment. Second, in this country. And thirdly, we are going to tap into all our resources. It's actually going to activate every sector of our economy, whether it be agriculture, whether it be IT, education, all those things. This is going to open up all sectors into the next aspiration.
And I'll get you to talk to me a bit about the how, you know, you plan on going about that. But as you're having this conversation, more than 2 million people are currently facing starvation in several counties across the country. And we're having also this conversation at a time when there's a huge cry about the high cost of living. So economy is really forming a big chunk of the conversation going on with regards to the agenda for the 2022 general election. I want to know from you, Nyakan, if you find a solution that is sustainable in the documents that you have interacted with so far. What has stood out for you? Is it a miss? Is it a hit?
Yeah.
From where you sit.
Okay, like my colleagues said, that each of the leaders who's developed their manifestos has a plan for the people. Hopefully they have connected enough with the people to know what the people need. But the subject of agriculture, I think, has been displayed across the board,
yes,
including in my own priority area. I think the issues of the cost of living for me are of utmost importance. Agriculture has been cited by both, Kenya Kwanza and Azimio.
Yeah.
I've seen they have cited it. There's a huge emphasis on some of the things they want to do, investing, like in the areas of the food basket, in the cases of Kenya Kwanza, sort of looking at some of the interventions they want to put in terms of investments in key sectors like the cash crops. They're looking at that. I've looked at Azimio's side of agriculture, and they're looking at also building on climate smart agriculture, which I think is good, because organic farming, climate smart agriculture is sort of a response to also not just food security, but also sustainable environment, okay? However, what I'd like to see, and for me is a priority also as a presidential aspirant in terms of leadership, is to see, as we plan long term, okay, which is the things that the manifestos have, what are we also doing as leaders today? Because when you're looking at the matters of the bite, hunger, okay, drought, okay, people going without food, people not being able to put food on the table today. What can we do today, just as leaders of today, to show the commitment to our voters that we are really serious? And I'd love to, pass this argument to my colleagues here, that if truly the candidates at hand are serious about what they're saying in their manifestos, including myself, what are we doing today? One of the things that I have in mind, for example, is how much money are we spending? We talked about commercializing our politics. Okay, our politics is commercialized. A lot of money going out to pay people during campaigns. Hundreds of millions of Kenya shillings, trillions perhaps, on paying people to come and listen to us so that they can vote for us, right? Now, if we are really looking at the things that are biting our Kenyans, food is a basic, human need, okay? We cannot be able to be productive if we are not able to eat and live, right? To have a productive workforce, we need to be able to feed our workforce. So my proposal just on the today is the amount of money, if we're in a political cycle, yes, electoral cycle, those 200 million Kenya shillings that we're sticking out to fill our stadiums for people to come and listen to us, can you be able to take it to subsidize the cost of food and peg and say, we are putting this money out to our suppliers to cushion our consumers so that people can have food on the table today? That would demonstrate to our voters that this leader I can
right.
trust.
All right.
You get it? And they'll do something about the food.
All right.
The long-term mechanisms, obviously they're there, right? We can see that they're taking good steps, including what the government has done right now. You've seen our CS last week made a decision to cushion imports, isn't it, for maize, to bring down the cost of maize. But that's in a couple of months' time. What are we doing today?
Now,
as we're doing medium
because there are people
and
who
long
missed,
term.
who missed a meal as we speak, just because they cannot afford the price of maize flour, which goes to about 230 to 250, which is very unfortunate.
Yes, I've seen great stuff, right? But we also need to just balance it off.
All right.
With today.
I'm coming to Isabel in just a bit, but Kennedy, very big promises that we have, in these manifestos, and she has cited the climate smart agriculture, plans to introduce climate smart agriculture, subsidizing farm inputs, expansion of maize production, agro-processing, improving livestock farming, growth of the blue economy from the Azimio la Umoja. Kenya Kwanza is promising to provide adequate, affordable working capital. This is meaning that they're going to give farmers animal feed, fertilizer, and agro-chemicals that are needed, promising to inject 8.8 billion shillings in dairy farming, to deploy modern equipment so that they can increase productivity. And I can go on and on about the promises that are in these manifestos, but the same question I asked, Nyakan, do you find the solution that Kenya needs to treat what is ailing its agricultural sector captured in these documents that you have interacted with?
You know, the two parties, the two organizations are actually trying to address the same thing, but their approaches are different.
Yeah.
And that's why it is important for us to interrogate those approaches, because if you don't interrogate, then you can't wait at the tail end to expect, something. Your expectations is going to be totally different from what they will deliver. And I have gone through the Azimio and I've gone through the, UDA manifestos. UDA is 66 page, Azimio is 43 page. The first thing that I realized in the UDA manifesto is that it's very incoherent. You have to make up, quite a lot of information by yourself. I mean, you can't read a sentence, you can't read 2 paragraphs and fail to find a sentence that is incomplete. So you wonder what it is that they're talking about. And that really points, a finger to, the seriousness with which they are defining a contract with the citizens of the country. I mean, if you want, to sign a contract with somebody, a supplier or whoever it is, you must be certain that every word in that document is good enough,
like,
and
for
you can
instance,
stand by
which area did you identify a gap
across multiple areas? You know what? Something like safety nets. Where they are providing safety nets to the elderly people. You find comments under that promise relate to totally a different promise. It's a terrible thing. I think the person who prepared that document. Now, so going down to agriculture, I am very keen on them demonstrating what it is that they want, how it is they want to achieve those. And you see, the Kenya Kwanza manifesto is premised on the fact that it is supporting the bottom-up conversation. And the bottom-up generally indicates that they want to inject resources at the bottom of the pyramid, which is all fine, so that then people at the bottom of the pyramid can create wealth and then can go up the economic ladder. But the how is most important. You see, you cannot inject money without structures. And the structures should enable you to measure the impact of the resources that you have provided to generate certain required outcomes. Now, if you're just, putting money and you're telling us you're going to put 2.5 billion in ICT, we're not clearly seeing how you're going to measure the performance of these resources and create a control mechanism around it. I think that those kind of promises are promises that will lead us into grand corruption. And you know, there are many. I think looking at the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, there's quite a lot that will be done. A lot of those promises are pegged on the Hustler Fund. And Hustler Fund then could become a very big slush fund for corruption.
All right, we'll come back to the Hustler Fund later. But you here, Isabel, just in the interest of fairness also, you've had, you know, and I know you have your promises as Azimio la Umoja wa Kenya in terms of how you seek to boost or support the agricultural sector. The how is what many have said is missing. Do we have a how? Can you assure us of a how tonight?
Yes, we have a how.
Yeah.
And why you would have some trouble understanding our opponents is because when we have the right how and they have to just, you know, oppose the only how, then they would have to come up with anything else that will not make sense, because there's only one way of approaching this issue. Agriculture is the backbone. For the longest time we kept saying that it is the backbone of our economy, but now it's even just more than just our economy, it's really our survival.
Yeah.
So when we look at it and when we look at the base that we have to feed our nation first, we have looked at, first of all, broadening our crop base so that we are not only dealing with our traditional crops, we are talking about emerging crops as well. Emerging so that, first of all, they are not dependent on our climate too much, so that, you know, whatever can grow in certain areas, then we specifically go for those areas with that crop. So the emerging crops, there's also emerging new cash crops, actually, when we talk about agribusiness. For example, we have started on the Hass avocado. So many others are coming up, you know, and so we go for those. We go for the blue economy. Again, we are saying it's an area that is totally untapped. You know, it's again an area we can feed our nation and also work on our nutrition. And also we are talking about mechanized agriculture, so that we do not have to still do that old traditional farming where only the very, you know, certain class of people actually do it, and the youngsters are not able to relate with it because, you know, it's hard work, so to speak. It's, you know, we can go mechanized, and that way we'll be able to bring more people into farming. When we do smart farming again, we're able to bring the youth into it. You know, so there's going to be more production. The government, the Azimio government is also talking about idle land, that there's a lot of arable land that is lying idle, and it is owned by government, that even that land is going to be brought to use, it will be commercialized. We're talking about irrigation, expanding our water base, you know, in irrigation and all that, so that we are able to actually continue growing our food even when our rain fails. So we have to look into many areas. There's only one way of doing this, and a deviation from it is not going to work. So we're going to mechanize it, and we're going to also use technology. We have to take innovative ways. Look at what the rest of the world is doing. We see deserts that are very productive in terms of food. We can learn from them. We can, you know, use innovative methods also to get into that. So the how is exactly that. We're going to mechanize, we're going to use irrigation, we're going to bring more land into agriculture, we're going to expand our crop base, and we're also going to do the subsidies.
All right, Nyakan, I know you have a lot to respond to what she just said, and even just to also tell us a bit about, you know, your strategy to make this sector work. But allow me to take a very short break right now. We are coming back with more as we talk about the agricultural sector. Part of the strategies proposed by the manifestos, contained in the manifestos as part of the strategies to boost the country's economy. We are talking about the manifestos and the economy tonight on Kenya Decides. Do stay with us. When we come back, we are coming with much more. Continue engaging us on social media at KBC Channel 1. Use the hashtag Kenya Decides.
We shall legalize with Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya of the Roots Party. Raila Amolo Odinga of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Party.
Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa.
David Mwaure Wahiga of the Agano Party. And
hakuna kura ya hasla mtaiba.
William Samoei Ruto of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. Presidential Debate 2022. Do not adjust your sets.
It was all an accident. When I turned around, your mother was already falling.
If you know what's good for you, you had better give me your complete support.
But not on your stupid nonsense.
You're humiliating me, Flavio. I can't take it anymore. You're going too far. Stop.
Shut up and do as I say.
Ines, the love I feel for you remains intact.
But I need to get out of this place before he gets back here.
Are you saying you want to run away from your husband?
Genova is the heir to the throne. It'd be a grand gesture to have him come with me.
I don't want to see my brothers hurt each other.
I'll be the only one you can trust in the Amethyst Palace.
Prince Jason also asked me if I had feelings for you that were romantic.
I'm not afraid of the fire. I've even seen a black dragon before.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. This is Kenya Decides, coming to you live from Fairmont, the Norfolk Hotel. Tonight we're discussing manifestos and the economy, the strategies that the players in the 2022 general election have to fix the country's economic challenges. Critical sectors cited: agriculture, talk about supporting micro, small and medium enterprises, talking about also investment in manufacturing as one of the ways in which we can generate wealth for this particular country. But how sustainable are the approaches contained in these very critical documents? That is what we are discussing tonight, and I'm hosting a panel of three, a gentleman and two ladies. Kennedy Ojunga is the corporate executive. I'm also having tonight Isabel Githinji. She's the third Deputy Secretary General of the Azimio National Coalition Executive Council, and Nyakan June, a strategy and policy expert, also a presidential aspirant in the 2022 general election. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying on. Now, before we went to the break, Nyakan, I wanted you to respond to the how, because that has been the elephant in the room. A very critical questions raised by Kennedy earlier from the Azimio wing, and Isabel has broken it down on how they plan to fulfill their vision for the agricultural sector. Do you find that convincing?
I'd say it's a step in the right direction, because mechanization is really a good way to go, because we need to be harnessing and increasing production, creating many jobs as we can, and diversifying, she said, more crops, getting into the blue economy. However, I just want to go a step deeper on the how. It would be good for us. We're at a stage in the nation where we need to move from a highly consumer economy to a production economy. So it's a step in the right direction that we're listening to manufacturing and those things that are moving us into that direction. I'd like to take us back a little bit to the 1960s, 70s, and 80s in Kenya. We were really a highly production economy. We were producing cotton, we were producing, and making our own, clothes and merchandise and all that, and exporting, on top of our agricultural produce, we slipped back on that because then we have become a highly consumer economy. Now, if we're going to move into production, we have to go back and look at our factors of production and how we're going to be able to enhance our workforce, number one, our youth, our greatest workforce. How are we going to inspire them, tool them, and then be able to engage them in sectors of the economy that are high value. Okay, agriculture is one of those. Okay, now when we're looking at that, we're looking at also how do we make that sector not just productive but sustainable. Okay, to be able to feed us and to be able to grow our economies to the point that we can export. Some of the hows that I have in mind is I think that the government of the day and the government that's coming in should be able to focus on subsidies within the sectors, making the cost of inputs manageable and affordable so that we can produce more and we can be able to sell more and make more. When you look at that sector, you find that it's one of the sectors with the highest level of corruption, highest brokers in the value chain. So you find that the farmers are paid less and the people at the tail end, you know, in the middle part, they gain more and the consumers suffer because the cost of food is high. So for me, it's to look at all the inputs in that value chain, okay? Subsidize them so that they're affordable for the farmers, okay? Deal with the brokers. I personally would eliminate brokers and provide direct access, direct market to the farmers, okay, so that they have better prices and the consumers have better prices also for their food. And then the other thing that we do is we have to look at the engagement of the private sector, partnering with government to create jobs because they're the experts, okay, of technology, of production and all that stuff, and partner in a way that we can actually create a lot of jobs in this sector and enhance that area. So I think that the how is also important to look at the role of technology and, you know, bringing it all over and reclaiming, you know, our dry, semi-arid areas. Why do we have all these floods that we have every year and all this wastage? I think we should harvest our water, recycle and spread these water channels to the places that don't have water so that we can produce more.
Well said, Nyakan. Yeah. You know, this is a very critical sector, we all agree. Earlier we were saying it's not just a sector that we are looking at as one of the biggest contributors to the country's GDP, but it's also sort of like touching on our survival as the days go by. Over 70% of the country's population depend on the agricultural sector for food and for employment and for, depending on how you want to look at it. But if you're looking at how we are funding this sector, Kennedy, the last I checked in the last financial year, 46 billion was allocated to agriculture. Deputy President William Ruto says he plans to inject 250 billion in this critical sector. Is it attractive?
That would certainly make it attractive. I think that you know, we are not producing enough food for the country and even for export. There's a lot of money to make in selling the food in country and also out of country. And so to be able to achieve that level of production and that kind of scale, so we need a lot more injection of capital into it. But the question is, so where are you injecting that capital? You know, you've got to identify the most you know, effective point within the value chain that you can inject the capital. Now, Nyakana has spoken about subsidy, but that subsidy really needs to be time limited. We can't subsidize the rest of our life. We were subsidizing when we first became independent, and we've been subsidizing up to now. I mean, I think it has to come to a stop. But how would it come to a stop? We got to start bringing manufacturing home. I think that there is a lot of value that we lose when we buy and rather import inputs into the country. And when we bring manufacturing home, it's very easy for us to take control of the, you know, the prices of the inputs to the farmers. I think that that would be very important, that we invest in you know, manufacturing locally. All right.
Thank you for taking me to that other part of our conversation. Manufacturing, also something that is very key. The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya is planning to expand the country's sources of income to go beyond, you know, to go beyond just depending on agriculture, but just also focus on manufacturing. Tell us a bit about this vision.
Thank you. Manufacturing is the future of this country, and it is how we are going to move from, you know, where we are, where we're just saying we are, what can I say, modest economy, and just go into wealth creation in this country. Now, when you look at any other country out there that is developed, definitely manufacturing became the route that took them to that level. In our manifesto, and even as we're looking at manufacturing, it's going to open up every other sector, agriculture and every other sector. But for us to actually get into manufacturing, we have to first of all produce tools. We have to do tools and machinery, because even for our agriculture, everything that we are doing, we are importing, including the machinery. So when we are talking about manufacturing, we're talking about steel plants and other kind of plants that will enable us to actually produce now tools that will enable us now to go into the different sectors, whether mining, whether running our industries, whether textiles, even if we're going to have our sewing machines, all these things, TVETs that we have, and we are going to actually give them machinery, we have to now also go into that issue of tools, equipment, machinery. Because again, if we rely on importing, we are still going to be suffering. Now, when we come into, for example, I'll give an example with agriculture and manufacturing. On value addition, for example, we have taken, for example, the Hass avocado as our new crop, our new cash crop. But when I look at the root, let's say the life of an avocado, supposing it was not from farm to plate, and it actually went from farm to an industry, what would its life be like, and what would its value then be like? It would begin, we would produce oils for our hair, for our beauty, supplements for our bodies, and all that. So you find that the value of that avocado, when we import it, when we export it in this manner in which it is, we'll get our 20 shillings, 30 shillings from that avocado. But the recipient on the other side, let's say China, what do they do with that avocado? I don't think they just use it on their githeri plate. You know, they actually take it to an industry. So imagine if we took that, if we took our coconuts to an industrial plant, would actually produce oils for cooking, and would have now like the kind of struggle we have with the oils, our edible oils, because we have to import some components of it. And yet we have coconuts which can actually produce oil and be able to supplement for our needs. So anything we do, so long as we go the manufacturing way, is going to employ many people in the industries and in the value chain, and produce very many different aspects of the same commodity.
All right, this is also a sector that has attracted the Kenya Kwanza. They're looking at, boosting efforts for us to manufacture things like edible oil, investment in the textile industry, talking about the BT cotton, presenting a hope for this country, looking at how we can, start manufacturing automobiles, sort of like both formations are speaking the same language but different approaches to how they plan on going about it. But what stands out is that they say it is possible. If it is possible, Nyakan, how come we've never tapped the opportunities that manufacturing actually can offer this country? What are some of the bottlenecks?
Yes, so at least one thing we agree is that it's time to really enhance our manufacturing. Okay, we need to move from consumer to production. I think we need to be strategic about how we do it in terms of time, effort, and money, and the results that we want to see. How much time do we want to take to get where we need to go? Okay. Building on to what Isabel was saying, and I'm taking a bit of a divergent view here, is when we say we want to first manufacture the equipment and the machinery that then we will use to manufacture what we need. There's an element of time, element of cost. We have to look at the cost of inputs even to manufacture as a nation. Have we looked at that? Have we looked at the tax, tariffs? Have we looked at all those things that are engaged in manufacturing, the tools, the equipment, and also the competency? By the time we know that this machine is going to produce for us this level of output in this amount of time, we first have to go into our engineering to engineer the tool, the manufacturing, those things, okay? And then we perfect that, then is when we start producing. There's an element of time, cost, that is lagging there.
How far do you think we are?
What I think that we should do is let's focus on our areas of strength, and also let's recognize that we're not an island. We don't have to reinvent wheels where some things have been done. Let us build and strengthen our foreign policies and our foreign engagements. Let's look at where things have worked, where the technologies that we are desiring to build and make already work. Let us bring them on board, begin to produce, okay, as we learn, okay, so that we can then be able to produce the tools and the equipment we need to produce, having learned, okay, but while producing. We also need to look at the environment of production. In order to produce locally, you need to look at the cost of inputs. You need to look at the taxes. You need to look at our import policy. What are we importing that will kill the local things we're producing? Have we realigned it? And as we are realigning it, is it killing more jobs as we are trying to create jobs? And what is a transition plan? Okay? So I think that we really need to look at that. Then also we need to look at where our strengths are in terms of what's our comparative advantage. We should not be manufacturing everything. We should manufacture what we feel will be strongest at and leave others to play in an area of their strength, so that we can harness.
But we shouldn't be importing things as basic as toothpick.
We should not be matchbox.
On a light note, anyway. So things like leather, building products, pharmaceutical products, Kenya Kwanza, these are things we can actually manufacture within our borders. But you cited a bit of what it takes and some of the things that we have to consider when making that fundamental decision. But Kennedy, let's look at the human capital. Even the people we train, the graduates who graduate every year, are we preparing that population for this revolution, the manufacturing revolution that seems to be the vision for these political players? Do we have people who work in these industries?
I think yes and no. I think yes, in the sense that we are producing, but we may not be producing the right numbers, that will be able to create the effect that we want. So it would require, as an area of investment, a lot more focus and a lot more, investment into that. And I think UDA has spoken about it, and Azimio has spoken about it. In fact, Azimio is talking about RPL, I think so. Where they are skilling,
certifying the people with skills that are not obtained from the formal education system. Absolutely.
And then also, I think UDA is talking about providing, investing in training and retraining of people. So I think that indicates a very good, focus. I hope that they will be able to invest in those areas to produce sufficient number of well-skilled, engineers and technicians to run the industries. I must also say that it's a pity that we know that manufacturing is very important in creating jobs and growing the GDP, but if you look at the contribution of manufacturing today, it's gone down. If you look at industry, according to the data from the National Bureau of Statistics, it's only 18%. Okay. Well, of course, agriculture is about 33%. So you begin to see that there's a lot of work for the political players. If they would like to create this wealth within 5 years term, because you're only asking for 5 years term, then there's a lot of work for you guys to do.
That depends.
And that brings me...
A day in politics, such a long time. We've seen a lot in this political space.
It brings me to the, to the thinking that maybe the political players need to begin to stage their manifesto and say, within the first 24 months we will do this, then this other one we'll do by the end of the 5th year, this other one we can only start now, but we can complete it in our second term. So they start buying their second term now.
All right. I want to move on from this, but I cannot go away from manufacturing before I talk about the textile industry that I don't know, it is paralyzed, for lack of a better term. And this is something that has attracted also the attention of, I've seen it cut across in these manifestos, something quite controversial that Raila Odinga said the other day in his plan to stop importing second-hand clothes and just boosting the country's textile industry. Kenya Kwanza also plans to do the same, but in a different approach, also just talking about the BT cotton, presenting a new hope for this country. Talk to me about this textile industry, Nyakan. Where did the rain start beating us? Because for us to fix the problem, we have to know where it's coming from.
Absolutely.
Where is the problem? Is it importation of second-hand clothes? Is it that we do not have quality cotton? Or what is it exactly?
First of all, from head to toe, you can see I'm adorning local
Nice.
Locally made clothes. Yeah.
What do you say?
Because we have to practice what we preach.
You're looking good, by the way. I said this before the show, and I can say it now.
Thank you. I'll tell you, I believe in our local production. However, as somebody who literally, and anyone who buys local clothes will agree with me, that local clothes are by far more expensive than what the regular clothes are. Especially look at a basic need, a basic right, clothing, food, shelter, right? Can the normal mwananchi afford to buy this for 4,000 shillings?
Yeah.
They can't, isn't it? So it takes us back to, even though we love as leaders and we want as leaders to be able to enhance local production and local content, we need to be able to think about how we can cushion our producers of our local garments, okay, in this economy, right? If the cost of inputs there are so high that by the time the person finishes teaching this one thing, it's already, the cost of input is 3,000 shillings. They can only sell it for more than 3,000 shillings. It could be 4,000, 7,000, whatever the amount. So we need to start by saying, how do we look at reducing the inputs, the cost of the inputs, in order to enhance that sector? Initially, like my colleague said here, we can't have subsidies forever, but initially it may mean that we put an affirmative action and some subsidies to cushion or to build that sector, okay, as we recover. Our production units, okay, we used to have Rivertex in the 80s producing clothes at a very affordable price, right? But those factories were shut down, okay? So our equipments, we lost them. It's really costly. How do we revamp? And how do we not reinvent the wheel, like I said? And then how do we, as we are getting rid of second-hand clothes, take care of the basic need of clothing for the normal mwananchi? What is the alternative you're putting into cushion before you just say, we're going to get rid of
Isabel,
it?
are we going to get rid, are we looking at that? Is it even possible, I mean, the proposal to ban importation of second-hand clothing? Are you looking at the impact this is going to have in the country?
The Right Honorable Raila Odinga spoke to this issue, and he clarified in a meeting that he had with the stakeholders, the Mitumba traders, who later on met with him after the pronouncement. And he explained that he did not mean that they're going to ban Mitumba importation. What he said is that the government, the Azimio government, is looking towards building the textile industry, and it will run side by side with the Mitumba industry, so that people now have a choice. What that will do, it will promote cotton farmers, it will promote the ginneries and all that, processing plants and all that. Then we'll also have now the fabric. So now again we have a new value chain of people who are now buying in wholesale and still retailing and all that. And I'll give you an example, because I know quite a bit about Mitumba, myself being a trader there. When Corona happened, there was a ban on importation of Mitumba. And what happened is that now people ran out of stock after some time, and there was deep suffering. But Kenyans are quick to just pick up and find another way of survival. And immediately they started selling new clothing and new shoes. And that is what they survived on until the ban was lifted. So what I'm speaking to is that it doesn't mean that a complete ban on Mitumba would mean that people would go without clothing, or that the traders would miss out on a way of trading. But what he was speaking to is growing our textile industry.
All right.
And that is, and leather industry as well, because we import clothing and shoes.
All right.
And that is going to boost another sector of the economy, including fashion. I keep on saying I'll be one of the models in plus size women, Yeah, there's a whole new opportunity that's going to come there.
Well said.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're almost running out of time for this, and I cannot complete this conversation before Nyakan, I give you an opportunity to tell me a bit about also your vision for the country. Just a summary of what is it that you hope to achieve should you become the country's president, because you say you're a presidential aspirant in the 2022 general election. Anything that's different from what we've had in the four manifestos?
In a nutshell, my vision is a unified Kenya, that's building, a unified Kenyan population, that's working together with government to build the economy and for every Kenyan to prosper. Okay? You asked me what is significantly different from my manifesto and the others. I'd say the issue of national unity and national values. Because when you look at the level of corruption in our country, we cannot just clip it from the wings and from the, the tree, the branches. We have to go to the root. And it's by realigning our national values from the ground, okay? Of course, we'll tackle corruption from different levels. I have many different ideas. The employment issue, unemployment issue, the systemic corruption, our commercialized politics, it's all around. But the issue of national values as a people is critical so that we can restore national pride, national unity. Especially when I look at the kind of way that we are dealing with our politics is commercialized and ethnic based, okay? So every time we've collected ourselves with the base of our tribes. When one group of people go into government, automatically another group is generally left out of government or out of business. And for me, that's having a nation that's playing at half capacity. It's not bringing in the full production of its people in all the diversity for national production, okay? So for me, national unity is really critical, okay? A strengthened foreign policy. I've not seen this highlighted in any of their manifestos, but it is in my focus agenda, because looking at how we can harness our relationships, not just locally, in our devolution structure, but regionally within the continent of Africa and globally, okay? Because there's lots of benefit in seeing how we can work together to enhance not just our local economy, but our regional and global economics, okay? The other thing that for me is really critical is a focus on implementation and the protection of our Constitution 2010, okay? I've seen it in the Azimio Manifesto, I've seen it in the Kenya Kwanza, but I think a lot of focus in bringing in accountability, transparency, and selfless stewardship. That will be able to guarantee generational transformation for our people.
All right.
And then two other things that I'd love to bring out is the thing of environment, because no one is talking about the environment. A little bit touched on by Azimio, but the environment is really critical. How we're going to be able to invest in promoting and protecting our environment and even reclaiming the arid and semi-arid lands.
Thank you,
yeah? Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, I just want us to wrap up this conversation, but Kennedy, in the interest of fairness, there's the plan that the Roots Party leader, Professor George Wajackoyah, laid out there on how he seeks to generate wealth for this country. Part of it is legalizing marijuana and snake farming. What do you think about this strategy? Many said that, at least for him, he explained the how. Did you get the how?
Certainly, he explains the how,
yeah.
and he shows the money.
Yeah.
So he says that you produce this, and this is the market, and this is how much you're gonna get, which is very good. But now the question is, are we as a country willing to engage in some of those things? Planting marijuana. I know in other markets it's used for multiple other uses. But okay, do you want to do it? So if yes, then we'll have to ensure that we have the right legislations to allow that to happen, and to create controls. Do we want to sell snake venom? I think there is some sense to it, but how? You as my neighbor is not gonna. It's gonna be difficult for you to live with me. You're keeping multiple reptiles around me without control. Do you want? Yeah, and hyenas. I think he excites some interest because he shows that, look, there are other ways that are not standard ways through which we can generate money. But I guess that some of those look at this point in time very far-fetched. They will require quite a lot of legislation and structuring, so that then we can
you'll all have a chance to throw in what you think about that, but let me also just allow you, KDD, for a few seconds of your final remarks, because you're closing this up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, so this conversation is good, but there are many things that we've not talked about. Is the corruption, because that is really, what will set the plans off. You know, and the question is, are the parties really committed to fighting corruption, so that then the resources that they put to use are efficiently utilized, and you know, we can see returns. You know, I have my own opinions. I was here before, and I thought, and I still maintain, that I think the Kenya Kwanza team do not have a good plan on how to fight corruption. Now, so the manifesto that they're putting forth to us is a sales document that they just want to use to get our votes. And when they go in, they'll figure out
operationalizing the judiciary fund, and you know, giving the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission some sort of, you know, muscle to fight corruption. Those are not sellable points.
No, makes sense. No, makes sense. Makes sense. But you see, when you say that in the first 100 days, you got to be very realistic.
Okay.
You know what it requires to be able to make those changes, and you can't promise 100 days something that you can only deliver in one whole year. So I think that, you know, that's why I keep on saying, look, the how is important for us to understand, so that then we can believe, and then we can give them our votes on the basis of those promises.
All right. So, Nyakan, your closing remarks in a few seconds.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think for me, my closing remarks would include our voters, our population, our citizens of Kenya, and those who are watching us, to recognize the power that they have, to be able to understand what their leaders are saying, and to question the things we're asking. Are they really people I can trust, that I can depend on, that are actually going to have the solution for what I'm looking for, and have my heart in mind, you know? Are we connected to the reality of what our people are going through as we're developing solutions? 4 areas I will just not talk about, but I'll mention that are still part of my agenda and my vision for the country's youth employment and profitable entrepreneurship. Because when I see the funds that people are investing in, you know, to be able to tackle the economic issue, what we need to be looking at is it money that people need, or is it the entire end-to-end support that makes someone profitable? We've got many people who you can give money, they buy bananas you're selling. Are they making profit? And what do they need? Corruption, security, and national debt. Those are things also that we must keep in mind. But I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here, and I'm very optimistic that Kenyans will identify and recognize the season that we're in. It's a season where we have to make the true change and make the true choices that will bring that true change.
Thank you. Thank you, Nyakan. Isabel, your final remarks.
Thank you very much. I wanted to just mention that as we are looking to develop this manifesto and to roll it out, we are not saying that we are going to completely scrap what is working. We are saying we're going to introduce alongside what is working and bring us to the next level. So we are not going to scrap, we are going to build upon. Now, a society will also be judged by how it treats the most vulnerable. And so under Azimio, we are looking at the vulnerable communities, the poor of the poorest, and seeing that they also are provided for, even as we grow our economy to a point where they can now plug in. But before then, we're saying they're not going to sleep hungry. No child is going to be wasted. There's going to be education for all. We're talking about single mothers, that there's going to be a program that is going to help them so that they don't continue carrying this burden by themselves, so that there's a cushioning of the people, even as we build ourselves to the next level where we are all empowered.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Isabel Gevenji, the 3rd Deputy Secretary General, Azimio National Coalition Executive Council, also the Secretary General, Kenya Reform Party. I was also hosting tonight Nyakan June Juliet. She is a strategy and policy expert and a presidential aspirant in the 2022 general election. Thank you. And also Kennedy Ojunga, a corporate executive who serves as a corporate leader in telecom, media and technology, and also has a very rich background in politics. Thank you for creating time for us also. As we're talking about manifestos and the economy, of course, like I always say, we cannot complete everything in one sitting. That is why you need to stand by for the next edition of Kenya Decides next Tuesday, as we'll just be elevating this conversation a notch higher. All we want to do is to help you make informed decisions come the 9th of August 2022. This is the time to read those manifestos. This is the time to ask those critical questions that you could be having about the promise that the political players have for you and I as Kenyans. My name is Safina Cheng Oma, signing out from Fairmont, the Norfolk Hotel. Thank you so much for creating time for us tonight. Have a good night and God bless. Thank you.